someone might listen to that and say, oh, well, uranium's going to $200 a pound, and maybe it will. I think it's very likely to go into triple digits. So it's like the more research you do into uranium, the more bullish you become. So uranium is looking very attractive once again for those looking to build positions. On November 15th, I sold about 20% of my uranium portfolio.
Okay, so you mentioned uranium. Obviously, I want to talk about it because that's, for me personally, the biggest exposure in my stock market portfolio. And I recently spoke to a fund manager out of Norway. He has 80% in uranium, where you have 80% in silver. And that's the same for me. Only I have 70% into uranium. And that's, by the way, outside of my restaurant business and other ventures and a couple of other physical assets that me and my wife own. But uranium is my biggest holding. I currently have 15% silver, 15% gold, but I'm looking to rotate to 20% silver, 10% gold because of the of the underperformance in silver junior specifically. But anyways, uranium is my biggest holding, but it isn't yours by a landslide. Why do you think I'm wrong to expose myself more to uranium than you have?
So short answer is I don't think you're wrong at all. You invest in what you know about and what you're in tune with. I've educated myself a lot on uranium, but I've been studying silver for a decade, and I feel like I'm in tune with the market. I know it inside and out. I'm a student of uranium. I think I know a lot, but I'm no. It's not my primary expertise, so that's reflected in the allocation of my portfolio. And not to get off track, but with uranium, going back to what we're talking about with technical indicators, I think last time we visited was in November, and on November 15th, I sold about 20% of my uranium portfolio and sent an alert out to the members. And speaking of technical indicators, I got a lot of flack on Twitter when I was posting some bearish charts, short-term bearish charts. People say, oh, supply demand and all this. But that monthly RSI zooming out was way overbought on URNM, some of the ETFs and the major stocks. Even though the daily chart RSI had moderated, people say, oh, it's not overbought. And then we had this bearish rising wedge when we broke down. But all that to say, I wasn't super interested in adding to uranium in November, but now we're pulling back to not only 200-day moving average, but most stocks have lost that 200-day moving average. So uranium is looking very attractive once again for those looking to build positions.
Especially after the previous week that we had. The week before that, it was just really painful. When you say that you've been selling some stuff, I'm just thinking how maybe some of the recent happenings in Kazakhstan have changed the way that you approach your uranium portfolio in any way. Like, did it make you think about jurisdictional diversification or geopolitical happenings, or did you make any changes based on that or something else around it?
No, not really. I mean, when I built the portfolio, jurisdiction is a major factor anyway. So I was kind of diversified the way I wanted. So no real changes for me there. But, I just see that as the unrest in Kazakhstan is just another potential catalyst. It's like the more research you do into uranium, the more bullish you become. It's hard for that to not happen. And,
yeah, definitely. You got to keep yourself out of echo chambers as well, obviously, which happens a lot, but it's also a good sentiment gauge if you can sort of look from it from the outside. But it's definitely not easy, especially when you have 70% of your money into it. But in trying to educate myself on it, like you do, I saw something. Was it last week? Yeah, I think it was last week. I tweeted about it too. It was a chart on the exploration budgets for uranium since 2007. And apparently 2021 marked the first year of real growth in the money spent on uranium exploration, I guess what it was, in about 10 years. So since 2011, right? In about 10 years, the first growth. And the bulk of it, of course, went into the highest quality and possibly most expensive uranium jurisdiction in the world, which is Canada. I guess that's not the most expensive, but it's more expensive than Kazakhstan, obviously. But so what this told me is that while the interest in the space might be increasing a little bit, serious money is not yet flowing into it, right? That this is nothing yet. I mean, smart money, as they call it, is by far not paying attention to uranium yet. So it got me thinking that it's way too early to sell. But then I remembered that you told me a few months ago before Sput was a thing, so that actually might have been about a year ago, so really, that you would start scaling out of uranium by the time uranium hits 50 per pound. So, well, first of all, what do you think about the data that I shared, and has your exiting strategy changed? The stuff that you, I'm just thinking what you think about it, I guess, when you have more data coming in? Do you think the bull run has been extended into the future, or how do you place all of that?
Yep, great questions. So yeah, I did say that I was going to begin scaling out once we hit $50 uranium, and I coincidentally did that. That's why I took a little bit off back in November. But yeah, my price targets have gone up. I mean, simply because of inflation. That's just one reason too. From a technical perspective, $73 is the next technical target once we break the recent high of $50.80. And, as we approach that level, that's where I'll begin scaling out a little bit more. But, for your scaling out technique, it's a very personalized thing. Someone might listen to that and say, well, uranium's going to $200 a pound, and maybe it will. I think it's very likely to go into triple digits. So you might say, well, what are you going to sell some for? I think it's got to do with your position sizing. Like if it was a very small part of my portfolio, I'm more apt to hold on to it longer, like swinging for the fences. If it makes up a wider part of my portfolio, I can scale out in multiple tranches. That's what I plan to do in silver and uranium. So as we approach $73 uranium, that's when I'll begin scaling out just a little bit while keeping some for triple digits.
Mm-hmm. I guess that makes sense to, raise your exiting targets, especially if you're in the inflation camp, because, costs are going up. And I spoke to Jeff Glenn a couple of months ago, maybe 6 or 7 months ago, and he told me that he does not know of a company that can produce uranium profitably at under $60 beside Kazatomprom, obviously. And I also think in combination with that, I think that Justin Hugh from the Uranium Insider referred to it in one of his recent market minutes. It was the fact that the move in the spot price has actually been outperforming the equities so far. So that lag right there, I'm just thinking, how do you see it progressing if the price moves to the upside in a manner that you're expecting it to the $73? Like, do you expect the index to massively overshoot then and compensate for the lag, or how would you imagine it happening?
Yeah, so zooming out for a longer time frame, you could have made the case back in November, December, that the equities were overvalued relative to uranium, and that was true in the short term. However, when you zoom out and you go to the bottom in uranium was 2016, the end of 2016, it's around $18. And then the spot price of uranium had trended higher for the last few years, while the equities trended lower. So that ratio of the metal to the equities had gotten way out of whack. So it's only natural for it to revert to the mean and overshoot to the upside, and that's going to happen in impulses. And we saw an impulse last winter, pulled back, and now I think as the bull market continues, the equities are going to continue to outperform the metal by a wide margin.
Mm-hmm. So an 80% moving spot and then an overshooting equities, that would be, that's a very, very promising scenario. I really hope you're right. But okay, yeah, just a sort of a switch of a focus here, because I know you don't have all day, and I was just really hoping we can talk about platinum, because you mentioned it, you teased it, but then we didn't go into it. So it was brought to my attention, and maybe this is just noise. A lot of the information that I